Thank you very much for talking to Sky News from Aleppo. First of all, can I ask you to explain what difference the rebranding of your group makes?
First of all, I'd like to make it clear that this is not a rebranding. Jabhat Nusra has ceased to exist. It's completely dissolved, and this is the new establishment of an independent entity called Jabhat Fatah al Sham, or JFS.
Is this a permanent split from Al-Qaeda or just a very timely one?
It's certainly not something temporary. This is a necessary step forward in order to achieve the very much needed unification of ranks in Syria. And one of the core reasons that Jabhat al-Nusra initially was disbanded and we created then JFS was to remove any potential obstacles that may impede the success of a merger, like unnecessary affiliations.
How do you hope that this will change the situation on the ground, though?
I don't think that people really understand what the situation on the ground really is. We're talking about approximately half of a population of 23 million human beings displaced. And just to put that in a context for your viewers on Sky News, that's approximately 3 million people more than the entire population of London. These people have been forced to flee the barbaric onslaught of Assad's barrel bombs and his chlorine gas, Russia's thermite, incendiary and cluster bombs, Iranian and Hezbollah's invasion that aims at changing the demographics of this country. And that's all besides the 500,000 that Assad and his regime have murdered and tortured in his dungeons. Systematic policy of rape, looting and general destruction of property, public and private. Assad and his allies have turned whole cities like Aleppo and Homs literally into rubble. We're facing arguably the biggest tragedy the 21st century has ever witnessed, and that is the situation on the ground. So, in light of all of that, to answer your question, we hope that this decision to form JFS will help unify the forces that will bring an end to all of this suffering and pain. And if you look at our success at breaking the siege in Aleppo, anyone can see how unity is definitely the major game changer in Syria.
Can you explain a bit more in detail, though, about why you've decided to work alongside the other fighting groups against Assad?
This isn't anything new. Since the get-go, all sincere groups have been working side by side in order to achieve common goals. We must exert all of our efforts to protect these people from any harm they face. It's a moral obligation before being a religious one. Today we see the development of these efforts in collaboration resulting in a unified, strong force called Jaysh al-Fatah. Jaysh al-Fatah liberated Idlib, and now the recent breaking of the siege of Aleppo. It's clear proof that unity is key to success. We're stronger together than we are apart. And it's simple as that.
So how has the cooperation between you and the other groups changed the situation on the ground? Can you explain to us the coordination with other groups to break the siege in Aleppo, for instance, and your organisation's role?
We're not talking about a small village or town here. Aleppo is the biggest city in Syria. Al-Assad and his allies cut off 300,000 civilians from the only supply route that would allow humanitarian aid. This was the most high-level coordinated collaborations of all of the Syrian major players on the ground. Thousands of soldiers, the most experienced military commanders, all logistic efforts came together in order to foil the attempts of these four horsemen of the Syrian apocalypse: the Assad regime, Russia, Iran, and the militias of Hezbollah. Our role was integral in all fields, especially the planning and execution of military operations. For example, the highly fortified artillery academy, that was seized by our amazingly heroic special forces. And I say amazingly heroic because these men dived head first into the heart of the enemy camp, facing almost certain death. And then they started to fight their way out from the inside in order to open a way in for reinforcements to complete the mission. This couldn't have been done without them.
Okay, so what is the military plan now for Aleppo? now the siege has apparently been broken?
Well, look, Alex, the plan is very simple. The plan is to maintain this momentum until all of Aleppo is liberated.
So what information do you have on the reported chlorine attack that took place in Aleppo?
If you're referring to the most recent attack on Zibdi in Aleppo, it's obvious that it was a collective punishment of a civilian population in revenge for their support of those who broke the siege. There were 3 confirmed deaths, possibly a 4th. The 3 were a mother and her 2 young children. 90 people were treated as a result of the attacks. And it's very unfortunate that these chlorine attacks aren't uncommon in the free liberated areas. Hospitals have become accustomed in treating these injuries. But this international condemnation on the issue is doing absolutely nothing when the barbaric slaughter of the Syrians and the use of even more destructive weapons than chlorine attacks, causing hundreds of deaths at a time. It's been a policy of the Syrian regime and its allies in this war since the beginning.
We have new political leadership in Britain. What would you say to the new British Prime Minister, Theresa May, and to other Western governments like Britain who are looking on and seeing what's happening in Syria?
We believe that interference in the Muslim world has always been counterproductive for the oppressed. And on many occasions, intervention has proven to be in favor of the oppressor. And you just have to look at Iraq, Afghanistan and Libya as prime examples.
Well, Western governments have said that you're still the same group, you've got the same ideology and objectives, you've just got a different name. What do you say to this?
It's very clear here, Alex, that by extension they're trying to infer that our ideology and objectives are completely alien to the general masses of the Syrian population. And we totally reject that claim. If Western governments are expecting us to come out and say that we want a Western liberal democracy, a secular democracy, they have to understand that as a Muslim society, our core beliefs and values define all spheres of our life. They shape our identity. They set a system of governance that will remove oppression and establish a system that will see justice for everyone. As for our objectives and ideology, like you asked, Alex, we have never been secretive about them. We publish them openly in the media. And the rest of the sincere groups on the ground, they also welcome them publicly in the media. The reality on the ground is that we are working side by side with the rest of the groups, and we enjoy a popular support from the people.
There are reports of direct involvement from Western troops in Syria. Do you welcome support from Western militaries to the opposition groups?
Look, like I said before, every single time Western troops interfere in foreign lands, they always end up creating more of a mess. The truth is, we don't believe that Western governments have the Syrian people's interest at heart. They're purely driven by self-interest.
We understand that there are a number of foreign fighters with you, including some from Britain. How many would you say you have, and what's your attitude towards them?
Well, there are hardly any British fighters in JFS members. The majority of JFS are Syrian, but we are proud of all of our members who have come to Syria to help the weak and help this cause. The bond between Muslims is very important to understand, and that it transcends all boundaries. It's an honor to defend these people with our lives. It's not a favor we're doing them, but the Syrian people do appreciate this, and they know who intends well and who doesn't. Their Muslim brothers have traveled to Syria to defend them, whereas the regime, for example, is collaborating with foreign forces that share no commonalities with this nation in order to destroy them.